Well, good morning, YouTube. All right, guys, it is Monday, I believe, February 11th? 12th. Yeah, it's a couple of days before Valentine's Day. I know that. We're back over at the shop. We're working indoors today because it's miserable and nasty outdoors again. Unfortunately, our beautiful weather has disappeared. Now, I was over here on Friday for a little bit, and I spent some time securing doors. Actually, a couple of weeks ago, I had put a new lock on that door right there, the walk-through door, and I lost the footage for that. But we had issues with some of the roll-up doors that didn't want to work right. I mean, I could get them up and down, but they weren't smooth. They didn't operate properly. And there were a few of them that I couldn't secure once they were closed. So anybody could come from the outside and open them up, even though some of them were hard to open. So I spent Friday really locking all that stuff down. Now that everything's cleaned up in here, time to get it secure. Now we got to work on the power. And I think I mentioned before, there is wiring in this building already, but some of it is in just shambles. Some of it's been broken. Some of it, I don't even know where it goes. We're going to spend some time tracing it. And I did do a little bit of that on Friday. And on Friday, for the very first time, I plugged something in to the one outlet that I had here for the very first time. Remember, you guys, by the time you see this, you'll have seen the other video where we actually installed the power pole and the meter box and everything on the outside. That was back in June of last year. Here we are, February of 2024. And Friday was the first time I'd ever actually plugged anything into it. Now, the nice thing about being here in the rain is I get to take a few more notes on where the leaks are. I know there are a couple of leaks in the roof. So you got some water on the ground here, but I think that's just splashed from the window because the ground is so close. There's a little bit of wetness here, and I think that is from the roof vent. Oop, can you see it? Oop, there it is. So those little spinny rooftop thingies. So I don't know what we can do there to stop that, but it doesn't look like the leak is coming anywhere other than through that. There is the water on the floor in here, but I don't believe that any of that is because of a leak. I believe it's all coming in from the door. We talked about that in the last video. And it looks like some water is coming in underneath that door as well. We've got another of those little swirly roof vents right here and a wet spot just below it. Another swirly roof vent and another wet spot. And then this building looks pretty good. It's kind of dark in here. Let me open up the door and see. So this room here doesn't look like there's any major roof leaks. Maybe one, because there is a little bit of a wet spot right here. But the rest of it looks like there's just a little bit of wicking coming from along the edges. And there's definitely a leak right here, coming from up in this area somewhere, right up there. I'll have to get up there and figure out exactly where it's leaking from. And then there is a spot right there with a slightly damp spot below it. It's not a bad leak, but a little leak. Then over here, we have some more wetness. And I believe it's from the vent, plus you can see around the vent where it's been leaking. The nice thing is this is a corrugated metal roof. So a lot of times maybe it's just the screws that are leaking in some places. Some places might be worse, but they're usually relatively easy to repair when a metal roof is leaking. It's not like where shingles have gone bad and you end up with a whole nightmare of problems. I've got just a couple specific spots that hopefully I can fix relatively easily. But at least now I've got them all noted and marked on where they are. And as you can see, I've got the dually inside today because I've got a bunch of tools and stuff in the back. And I don't want to keep running in and out of the rain to get it. Did this the other night too. It was actually a little bit rainy on Friday when I was here. So I had the dually backed into that bay over there while I did some of that final work in the evening. All right, so let's just give you a quick rundown on what's going on with what I can tell from the wiring. There's an outlet next to that door right there and one right there. And it looks like both of those wires run up and come over here towards the box. Now, not all of the wires reach all the way down to the box, but a couple of them do. There's another wire that runs outside and looks like it runs all the way around the building into that far, far room that all the wood was in. So maybe they just ran that afterwards and didn't want to go through the ceiling when the ceiling was here. I don't know. There's also a few sets of wires that run diagonally across here. Oop, there you go. Over to this room, but then right up there in that corner, right there, they just stop, like they're cut. So they don't go anywhere after that. This entire back wall has no power on it whatsoever, or anything over here in this room, with one exception. There is power in this room. I should say there's no power. There are outlets in this room. See, there's an outlet there on the wall. There's one there on the wall. There's a couple fixtures over there and one here. There's also some cutouts up in the ceiling with wires hanging down that aren't actually connected to anything. And all of those wires run catty corner back into this room that I just said there was no power, with an exception. And they all pop out up here in this corner, but then don't run to the box. So I think what happened is somebody came in here and stole as much of the copper wiring as they could. Stuff that was accessible, they cut and stole it. And the stuff that they couldn't get to easily is still there. Now, in this room, there is a switch on this wall right here. There is an outlet here and an outlet there. Over on that wall, there's an outlet, and there's an outlet over on this wall here, right there as well. But I don't know where the wiring comes into it. There's also a thingamajiggy hanging from right here. Again, where this is fed from, I don't know. It could have been those wires that were coming this way that were then cut. Don't know. And then the wood room has got two outlets on this wall, a 110 outlet and like a 30 amp outlet. But I don't see any wires feeding that room except for the one wire that runs around the exterior of the building for some odd reason. So we can get out here and show you. Yeah, right up there. See it? Right there. There's a wire, but that runs all the way around the building. I just stepped in a puddle. My sock's wet now. Yeah, and in this room, where there was the wood room, there's some wires hanging from the ceiling there. You can tell there was a light fixture on the ceiling there at one point. And what looks like there was maybe a light fixture there at one time, but no power wires coming through to it. But on this side of the garage door, you can see where there was another light, and there is a wire coming through to it. All right, this one right here also has a wire coming down. And it looks like there was one more spot over here that there was a light, but no spot for power coming down. So I'm thinking that they added these two afterwards and they just ran a conduit along the ceiling to go from one to the next. Because I do see marks on the ceiling, like maybe there was conduit. What's this over here? Is that conduit? Yeah, that's actually, can you guys see that right there? That piece? That's actually a piece of conduit running above the garage door over towards that other light fixture. So maybe that's what they did. Maybe this light switch right there powers these two lights, and then they just kind of ran them as legs off of that. So if I can get power to this switch, then maybe I can figure out lighting in this room. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention. There's some large, like 2-watt cable right here. This runs up along this wall, through the wall right over there, outside, and I believe it actually runs to a 30 amp RV outlet that's actually out in the yard a little ways, which is actually pretty convenient. Not too worried about hooking it up right now. I want to make sure the connections out there are good. There's also a water line that goes out there. At some point, there was water here. There's not now, but at some point there was. All right, so it looked like the easiest to start with was the outlets that go on this side of the door and this side of the door, the wire. It was the longest wire here, the only one that would actually reach the box. So I connected it to the ground, connected to the neutral. I connected the hot wire to the first 20 amp breaker I could reach. And now we're gonna go test it. I'm gonna go plug this temporary light in, flip the breaker on, see if it works. But first we're gonna plug this in over here, make sure that this even works, because I haven't used this light in forever. And that way we can make sure it's on the on position. All right, not super bright, but it's on, so we know that this works. And we got light. So now I'm curious if the other side was on the same circuit, because there's only one wire running this way. And in theory, if I were wiring this building, I'd run one wire over. I would have split it off up here to the two. So we're gonna go check the other one to see if it works. All let's see. Woohoo, looky there. Now we've got 3 outlets working in the whole shop. Hey guys, and this might be a good time to say that I am not an electrician. Do not try this at home. This is just what I'm doing. It's not an instructional video. If you need electrical work done, it may be in your best interest to seek a licensed professional. Amsoil Adam cares. All right guys, in an effort to trace some of the wires, I ran into something. So up here, I was trying to trace these wires. See, there are 3 wires that are cut, but there's one that actually does disappear up in behind that rafter. And then those wires go along this wall. And some of them run through there over towards the box, but I've also got this one that's hanging out down here that I don't know what it goes to. So in tracing it, I pulled these couple pieces of paneling down that were covering that hole up there, and check out the little guy I found up here just hanging out. And he's not bothering me, he's just hanging out. Get up here on the ladder, get a little closer to him. And there guys, check it out. It's a little bat. He's just hanging out right there. I don't know if he's even alive or not. He's not moving at all. He's just hanging out right there. So because I don't know if that wire hanging down inside this room is live or not, because I don't know if that's connected to the circuit that I just connected here, or if it's just coming through and dumps here. I'm gonna pull out the multimeter, make sure there's no power on these open bare wires here. If there is, I need to cap them off. All right, so there's no voltage present on these wires at all, so I'm safe to play with them a little bit, try to trace where they go. Like I said, there's 3 wires coming across here, but there's 4 wires over there. So this has got to be one of those 4 wires. It just crosses the wall. I just don't know if the one that's connected there is this one or one of the 3 that goes over there. All right, so I got this room figured out, I think. In addition to the outlets on the 2 sides of the doors, there's a hot wire running up here off of that same breaker. Now, when I first checked it, it only had 70 volts, but the ends of the wire were pretty dirty and corroded. So I cut the wires back, stripped them, got some fresh wires. I temporarily wired the light into it, went back, turned the breaker on, and it powers on. Now you'll see that is the gray wire that's coming out of that hole in the ceiling. There are also 2 yellow wires coming out of that ceiling hole. Now, the longer of those 2 yellow wires is the one that loops over to this other one that we had questions on. As you see, I've got it strung over here right now and hanging. And that's because I had to get it close enough to my multimeter where I can do an ohm check on it. So basically there is continuity between those wires. So I think they're all tied off here, and then they had subsidiary power run over this way, like maybe a light on that wall or something. Not sure. But then there's the short yellow wire up there as well, and it runs over to here, right there. There's a little wire hanging out. So it looks like it just kind of came here as a meeting point, and then it split off to the 2 ends. That would almost be perfect to wire a couple lights to, since it's already there. But I don't really want the lights wired to the outlets. I want to be able to turn the lights off and not have to turn the outlets off along with it. So not sure exactly what I'm going to do there. Well, looky there, guys. Looks like the sun is starting to come out on us. It's the most sun we've seen in 3 or 4 days now. But there's still a lot of water flowing. Definitely gonna get some grading done out here and get this stuff pitched properly. All right, so in that same circuit is the other bay. I've got power here as well. So I've only hooked up 1 wire to the power box, and I've got 2 outlets, a couple potential runs, and another run over here. All right guys, after tracing that 1 wire up there that disappeared into this room, I finally figured out that it does, or I should say figured out, I verified that it does go to this drop right here. As you see, there's no outlet on it, so it's just bare wires. There is an outlet, but it's just laying on the ground. So for right now, it's just wires sticking out. Also, another broken outlet here with these wires here. Now they have power when the breaker that I wired them to were on. Now there's also the switch right here on the wall. When I turn the switch on, then I have power from this drop in the ceiling right there, and that drop in the ceiling back there. So that'll be a good place to wire some lights in. But for the moment, I'm gonna shut that breaker off because I don't want those live wires just kind of hanging out there to bite somebody when you walk by. And guess what? I checked this one way over here on the other side of the building. So the ones I just showed you were over there on that far wall. Decided to bring a light over here. I've got power here as well. This past weekend's rains bring a beautiful flowing creek this week. All right, it's another day, and it's a much more beautiful day at that. So we're gonna get back to this. When we left yesterday, we got pretty much all the outlets here working and figured out these wires. We got the outlets in the front big room figured out and the light switch, but there's a few outlets over in what was the wood room that I think we're gonna call bay number 3. I think I'm just gonna number them from this direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That way, when I say bay 5, I know what I'm talking about. And I will label the box the same way so I know what breaker goes to what items. All right, so we figured out that the light switch does go to the lights. Both of those outlets there have power. I just need to put new outlets in them. This outlet also has power. The 30 amp outlet that's right there does not have power. This room does not have power yet, but there's a 110 and a 30. I think they're both 110, but 30, and that could be a 220. I don't know. I didn't see any 220 wires going to the box. But we've also got this clump of wires up here that I don't know what they do, and there's some wires right there. So right now, while I've got the main shut off on the breaker box, I'm gonna separate all these wires so that nothing is touching. I'm gonna go turn the breaker back on that I think leads to this, and then I can come up here and test the wires, but I don't wanna go up there and touch things until I know for sure that they're not live. All right, so from up here on the ladder, I've got these, and I've got that one hanging down over there. I can see the metal conduit going up into the ceiling here, and it also comes out over there. When I pull this, that moves. So I believe that's just the loop, a little jump over to there. So I've also cleaned off the insulation on these wires because as you look how corroded and nasty they are, I wanted to get some good clean ends here for testing. So I went ahead and cut them off, stripped them back a little bit more. That way get a good connection. So now I'm gonna go turn the breaker back on now that I know that none of this is touching. And as I went to turn on my breakers, I looked up and it looks like our little bat friend is gone. Fortunately, we probably disrupted his home. So when he went flying around last night, he probably had to find a new home for today. And I don't think I mentioned it last night, but while I was working up there around him, he never budged with me moving stuff. But I blew on him once, just went, and I saw him crawl back like a quarter of an inch. So I knew he was still alive, but today he's gone. All right, so I tested all of these and no power whatsoever. So we still got to find out what wire is feeding this room. And I have a suspicion about the 30 amp that's down there because there's also a 30 amp in here. Obviously it's been destroyed, but remember I said there was one wire running around the outside? Well, if you look up, there's one here. See, there's a piece of Romax tucked up into that corner. And right there, it goes into a junction box and it continues out to the other side of this, but it also travels in to the building to right there and goes down to this 30 amp. Now on the other side of this little outcropping piece or whatever, that wire continues. And then right here, it ducks inside. So I'm wondering if at that point it runs over to this wall or up to there or something. But I don't know. Now I'm gonna trace that wire around the building, it kind of disappears. So going back this way, I can follow that wire all the way around this corner. Yet right here, it breaks and is just hanging down. But then there's another piece there that only goes over that beam and is cut. And then there's another piece here that goes up and around and all the way around that corner. And I can only assume that this was all connected as one, guesstimating the lengths and going over the beam. Somebody had cut these. Why they would run the building, power all the way around the building, I don't know. But over here is where it disappears. So once we get around this side of the building, see it runs over, then it runs up on top of that roof. And to see where it goes from there, we can go through the building and up onto the high ground, and we can look. But I didn't have a ladder the other day, now I do, so we'll go see where it goes. All right, and from the other end of the building, I can see that wire still travels right up along that soffit, comes to this corner, and then it just drops down and hangs out down here in the ground. Not connected to anything. Now you see there's also another wire that's down here that goes up through this roof and then into the building. And that, ironically, goes to one of the other wires that's been cut. So if it weren't for the other breaks in the wire, I could just fish this end back through the building into the breaker box, which I'm pretty sure is where it originally was going and just somehow got pulled out. I could test to see if those other outlets work, but because there's other breaks, I don't know that that's the way I want to do it. I'd have to make multiple repairs. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do there yet. Oh, and that other wire that was coming into the building, I don't understand this either, but this is where it goes. You can see it coming into the soffit there. It runs up above where the breaker box is, goes into those 3 wires that ran over here that we were working on last night, that come out over here next to the bat, and it's one of the ones that are just cut and hanging right here. So that wire goes to absolutely nothing at this point. And I guess the part that I don't get is if they were trying to run power outside, why wouldn't they just go from the breaker box out and over? Why run a wire from here? There's no power source out there, unless it just doesn't make sense why they would do what they did, but I wasn't here when they did it, so there may be factors that I don't realize, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Now we've still got the wire that is hanging down right here that also runs through that group and is one of these wires hanging here. So one comes from there and one comes from outside. They had to have connected to something here at some point. So I'm wondering if there's another wire running through the ceiling already going to that room, at least for the 110 outlet. Maybe not the 30 amp. Maybe that 30 amp splits to go to the 2 different locations. I just don't know. So what I may do is just hook temporary power to that line that's outside. That way I can test and see what goes where. But maybe there's another wire running through this rafter setup up here over this room here that has a ceiling so I can't see the wire, that one of these connected to that supply power to that far room maybe. Just not sure yet. All right, and some of you may not know, but I am a bit of a pack rat. Not like unhealthy OCD, like my house is a mess pack rat, but I do have a hard time getting rid of things. And sure enough, when I do get rid of something, it's right before I actually need that something. So for years, any type of little leftover electronic stuff I've had, I've got this tote that was out of one of my storage buildings. I just throw it in there. And now it may come in handy. It'll save me a bunch of money, not having to go buy a bunch of stuff here. I may still have to go buy some, but this should minimize it. So in this tote, I have all kinds of extension cords and outlets. There's even a hot water heater down in there, weird stuff. This little tote right here with weird electronic stuff in it. You see there's pieces of Romax. There's small rolls of Romax here. There's a fairly large roll of Romax right there. So I just collect all this stuff. Look, I even got a box of outlets. Not a whole box. We use some, but look, there's 3 or 4 left in there. But anyway, there's hundreds of dollars worth of stuff here that hopefully I'll be able to put to use here and minimize what I have to go purchase for this project. Even some metal conduit. And even just a whole bunch of extension cords. So I dug into my tote full of stuff, including extension cords, and I whipped out a 100-footer. And I'm going to use it for test purposes. So here's what I've done. I have it here where I can plug it into that outlet if I choose. But I ran the cord out here to where, out here past where the brakes were in this wire. And I just did this. I stripped it back, cleaned it up, and made a temporary connection. Again, this is not the proper way to wire something. I'm doing this simply for test purposes. Do not try this at home. Could cause injury or death. All right, no sparky. All right, I'm gonna grab the meter, start testing stuff. So we should have power here now. And we do. So I'm gonna go check the other one and see if we have power there as well. All right, so the 30 amp plug, we have power here as well. So that explains that. I just have to run a new wire to feed that. Still nothing at the 20 amp. Now that's 30 amp down here, but it's still only 110 single phase. So it's just a 30 amp single phase, 120 volt. This should be 20 amp by the little dash that's in it. Still don't know where the power supply is coming from there. But another weird wire I've got too is out here. I've got this one coming out of the ground. Now we found this one when we were up here cleaning out with the tractor, but it comes out of the ground right there. And just kind of laying here. It was caught up in that tree and the weeds that were here. So I'm gonna be careful, but I think I'm gonna test it for power. Maybe it came up somehow and fed to this one, but I don't know where else it would be connected. There's no other wires going to the breaker box other than what's already hooked up. So we'll see. Well, no power coming to the wire out of the ground, and still no power coming out of the ceiling. And again, no power to the small outlet. So I guess I could restore the power to these 30 amps, but here's my concern. The wire that was run to them doesn't look like a large enough gauge for a true 30 amp circuit. It looks like it's probably 12 gauge, so it's fine for a 20 amp circuit. I don't know that it's rated for 30 amp. Now, I don't exactly want to have to run all new 30 amp wire everywhere, so I'm not sure what we're gonna do. So I think for now, I'm just gonna disconnect my temporary extension cord because I know that that circuit is good at least from that point on. And maybe I will just convert the outlets to 20 amp outlets instead of 30 amp outlets. And then if I do need a 30 amp or a 50 amp plug in here someplace, I will wire one myself and know that it's good right from the start. But I still need to find wherever the feed wire is coming into this room to fix these other outlets. I just don't know where it is yet. Well, I have looked and I cannot find a wire leading to this room anywhere. You know, you can look back in the little cubbies up there in case it, you know, somebody cut it, and I just can't find it. But I did discover this as well. Come outside over here on the outside of that wood room, those windows are, there's like this really ugly siding stuff that someone hung here. Notice there is another outlet down here. Not outlet, a light bulb outlet receptacle. Whatever, this thing. Now that's just on the other side of the wall from where that outlet is. So I'm assuming that wire comes through the wall. And then there's this wire here that I'm not sure where it goes to either. But that's heavier gauge. That looks like that 30, what should be going to that 30 amp. But I had power to that 30 amp before. So now it's got me wondering, did they unplug or basically disconnect the outlet that's just the other side of the wall to run this light out here? But then why does the 30 amp have power if the 30 amp wire sticking out here without ripping the wall apart? It may be a little tricky to figure out. Now, not being able to see the way the wires are routed through the ceiling, I did my little temporary trick again with the wire that felt to me like it was running that direction. And I've got power going to this, but still no power at that outlet. All right, so with the cover off of the 30 amp, I can see that there are two sets of wires going to everything in here. So I'm assuming that power is coming in from our previous temporary connection, and then a second set of wires is going outside. Maybe there was a second outlet out there at one time. There's also two sets of wires coming into this box, both coming through the wall. You know, I'm starting to wonder if our mystery wire out here was actually the power supply that went to this. So I'm wondering if we hook power to there, if it will supply everything else with power. It's worth a try, right? And with my temporary power hooked to that, I come here and I plug in and I immediately trip the GFI. Okay, I've got power to this outlet now, but here's what I did. I disconnected my temporary cord from here. I ran it around here. I removed the light bulb and the light fixture and made my temporary connection there. So I'm feeding the back of that from the other side. All right, a little deeper digging. I found another wire. I don't know if it's the right one yet or not, but if you look up here in that bay right there, well, you can't see it, but right up there, I found a cut wire. that looks like it's running over this way. And it's really hard to tell whether that wire is going to the hole in the ceiling or going all the way to the wall, but there's a couple of wires running that direction. They're far enough in that I can't reach without having to pull down ceiling, so I'm not real sure. So maybe I will splice these wires right here a little bit, grab my test cord again, plug it in, and see if we get power somewhere over there. One of the things that's making this challenging is I brought this big ladder here, and I think that's a 12-foot? Yeah, 12-foot ladder. And ceilings here aren't tall enough for it, except for all the way over here by the back wall. And what I really need is like an 8-footer that I can lean against the wall, then I can stand up and really see up in there, or use in these lower rooms. I've got my little step stool as well, but it's only about, I don't know, 4.5 or 5 foot off of the ground to the top step. I don't even know where it went now. So even standing on this top step, it's still not enough for me to reach any real heights along these walls. Need to go get another ladder. All right, so I ran my temporary cord up the ladder, spliced those wires, plugged it in, and now my light, ooh, can you see it? You really can't see it from here, but the light's on. So we now found the power to this outlet at least. I'm gonna go up there and check and see if any of those have power as well. And I'm even gonna check that one coming out of the ground now to see if maybe it was connected to that circuit and has power. I don't think it was, because that one was tripping the GFI, and this one isn't, so. All right, so I also verified that outside the wall on the other side of this outlet, there is voltage as well. Since I don't actually need power out here at the moment, and I don't want to put the light fixture back in, capping those off so that they're not. Now, one thing that is puzzling me, the wires coming out of the ceiling, the set that's furthest to the back of the room, closest to this wall, when I had power plugged into that circuit, the hot lead there had 25 volts. Not 125, just 25. When I disconnect the power, that voltage goes away. So somehow it's still connected. Not quite sure how yet. All right, so I cleaned out the bird's nest of some of the old insulation that was right here. And I found another cut wire right here. And then that wire back there, that's actually the one that we just tied into that connects to that. So this wire probably goes to one of these over here, but I'm not sure, so I need to do a continuity check between them. I want to say it's most likely be the one on the front, but then I still don't know where the one on the back that had that weird voltage goes to. All right, so before I pulled my ladder down from over there, I made a decision. Remember last night we had this light hooked up to this wire that was coming from the next room over. Powered the outlets on the two sides of those doors. Well, the wire just stopped there. It already comes this side of the wall. So I ran some new 12 gauge Romax all the way over and made a connection over there. I'm gonna leave it a little extra long here. I need to get another box so I can make the connection here. And I might even run one drop down and leave an outlet right here in the wall someplace. Because power's here, why not? At that point, I gotta buy a box anyways. I got the wire here, might as well just do it. So I'll have to wait to make that final connection, but at least it's connected over there. And once I make this connection, that room will work. All right, well, my test power going up to there. I have power on the rear set of wires right there. Still don't know where the front set goes yet. You know, and I want to assume that they use this to run lights and this just split it because this one runs right back here. Maybe there's another outlet up here someplace above this garage door that I just can't see. Wait a minute, look. Right there, painted white to match. Oop, right there. Another wire. I bet you that's the one that goes from over there. Well, I made the connection up here and then I tested for power over here and nothing. And you can see where there was a light on the ceiling there. There's also another mark over here on the ceiling that looks like there was a light. And there's even another little hole right there, but there's no wires coming out of it. So I have a feeling that maybe they ran that to there and then this over to here because no power there. And I don't know where else it would go. Just trying to think logically about how they would run it. Not that anything here's made any sense yet, but well, I was puzzled for a moment, but then I looked up here and I think I found the answer. So I almost missed it, but if you look right up there at that beam, there's a little cutout and there are 3 sets of wires coming out of there. So the one to the far right that you see now has power. with my jumper wire in. The other two do not. So I can only assume that this is where the junction was, and then it splits over to the two holes, but we don't have a wire coming out of that hole. So I don't know, maybe we can pull one of those panels down and fish it back out. It would be nice to still be able to put some lights back up over there. All right, so I made the hole a little bit bigger, enough that I could get my fingers up in there, and I found the wire that was just a couple inches off from the hole. I pulled a little bit of extra wire out here, but there's two leads that I can't get any more out of. But the nice thing is I verified and I know now how it all works. So basically what I'll do is I'll run power from the breaker box to this wall right here. I'll run down, put a switch on the wall, run back up and connect to where, right here, where that lead stops. Once that's done, I've got a position in here for 5 different lights, all with the flick of one switch. So that should work out pretty well. Don't have all the materials to do that here today, but at least I have a plan. And of course, I can wire more in if I need to, but there's already wiring here for 5. All right, so now that that is all figured out, we got one more room to work on, and that's the green room. Yeah, I really don't know that the name the green room is gonna stick with it, but I think it's pretty obvious why I'm calling it the green room. It was kind of added on. Well, I guess it's brown over here. So the green and brown room. Now I think we're just gonna call it bay number 2. But outlets on the walls in 4 different places. There's even a light switch here, but there's no lights. There are cutouts where I assume lights were at one point in time. So now it's time to test and see if we can make all of this work. All right, just a few moments later, I've run my extension cord again as my temporary up to that wire there, going over into bay number 2. Now you see there's another wire there too. It comes through, but it's not the one we need. So as we come around this way, we have power, at least on that plug. But if you look up there, you'll see where that second wire came through. It just goes over to this junction block, and then the wire has been cut coming out of it. So no reason to hook it up. So now I'm gonna go through and test all of the outlets. We got a total of 16 of them in here. And assuming they're all good, then I'll flip the switch on and see if we have power up top. Okay, so only the 8 outlets on this side of the building are working. The 8 outlets on this side are not working. Now these wires up top, right there, are not connected. I don't know whether they need to be connected to transfer power over. So I'm gonna go unplug power, and then I'll wire them together and see if we can make it work. So would you believe that there's more stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense? I know, show me your surprised face. All right, so after making that connection up there, it did transfer power over here, and I could get all 8 of those outlets working, but only if the switch was in the on position. So the switch wasn't for lights. It transferred power from this side to that side, which doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't think I like it that way. So I will most likely wire the wire that goes to that side to those outlets to the same power supply that I'll run to the building. And then the switch, the light that goes to the switch, I'll leave there so I can install lights later on. It's just weird that the outlets would only work with the switch on. Maybe the outlets are only there because they use those to run lights. I don't know, it doesn't make any sense to me, but it's not the way I want it. All right, guys, moment of truth. I just went and plugged my temporary power back in. Ooh, and it looks like we do have this light on. This one should come on with the light switch. Let's check it out. Oh, hang on, let me turn off my flashlight. There. So that light over there is plugged in to the outlet, which should have constant power whenever the breaker's on. And this one should come on with the switch. There we go. Beautimous. Now for the final test, gonna make sure that this works in all of the outlets. Bingo. Oop. Of course, I'm flash blinding myself trying to do this. Let's turn that light a different direction. All right, those 4 are good. Those 4 are good. And this should stay on. All right, and with that plugged in there, it should stay on. When I turn off the light switch, only that one should go out. That one's out. That one's on. All right, so this room is all wired. I still have to run a power supply to the room to get rid of my temporary extension cord. That's gonna have to wait till tomorrow. If you look outside that door, it's gotten quite dark on me over the last half an hour or so, but I really wanted to get this accomplished today. So back to it tomorrow. Well, hey guys, I'm back. So yeah, it is now Thursday. Yesterday was Valentine's Day, and I did not come back out to the shop and work. But when we left Tuesday night, remember we had everything figured out in this room. Running the temporary extension cord, we had power over to that outlet. And if we moved the cord up to the spot up here in the ceiling, we had power to where all the lights were. And then we went over to the other room and we got that all worked with the temporary source as well. But then it got dark. So when I came back in today, my plan was to go ahead and finish running the new wire to this room and run the new wire to this room. Now I decided I wanted to put a light switch in to control the lights. So with the new power ran, I added a switch right here. Yeah, I'll mount it later. It's just test purposes. So basically, got the main power coming to the room. It supplies power to the outlet. I split off and came to the switch and then back out to the lead up here that you can't hardly see that we tested to give power to all our light fixtures. But that didn't work. For some reason, when I did that, I had power on both sides of my switch, even with the switch in the off position. So somehow it was backfeeding, all the same phase, so it didn't hurt anything. So I disconnected and tested, and turns out I've got power up here whenever the breaker's turned on. But I don't think we did on Tuesday. But remember, when I ran temporary power to this line right here, we had power drop down out of the ceiling here. And then once I connected those, we had power at all of the light fixture places. So right now, I've got all of these disconnected again. And I've got all of those disconnected, no continuity. I do have those over there connected together. The breaker is on and we have power. I know that it's not showing up real good, it's LED, but yeah, that light is on. But then the problem is I still have power at those wires right there. Now these wires are the wires that I ran from my switch, which is right there. So again, it's one of those things that make you go, because now I don't know where the power is coming from to get to this wire. And I can't get power to my outlets now. So I've disconnected it. I'm gonna try running the temporary power again and see what happens. All right, so I get puzzled a little bit more. So I ran my extension cord up there again. First, I shut the breaker off to the room. Sorry about the wind. I ran my extension cord up there. I went back, I plugged my extension cord in. It immediately tripped the GFI. It didn't do that the other day. Maybe I'm gonna undo my other connection because that other connection wasn't connected the other day when I did this either. Maybe it's something to do there. All right, so at this point, I have disconnected everything that I've connected today. All the wiring's still in place, but no connections are made. With the exception of the main supply to this room. It is connected to the breaker box with permanent power rather than the temporary power that we tested with yesterday. My outlet is still working, see that light is still on. I still have power up here, which I didn't yesterday, at least I don't believe I did. But what I noticed is when I'm checking the hot wire to the ground up here, I've got 125 volts. When I check the hot wire to the neutral, I've only got about 72 volts. It should be 125 no matter which way I ground it. At the main box, the neutral and the ground are bonded. So it should be continuity no matter what. So somewhere, there's some kind of a resistance in that neutral wire someplace. but I still don't know where that wire goes. I've checked all my other outlets over here. No power to any of these. All right, and to complicate things more, I have now rerun temporary power with the extension cord back up to there. And with the breaker shut off, it was still just tripping the GFI immediately. So I disconnected the neutral and the ground at the breaker box for the circuit that powers this room. And then I can run power to here and it doesn't trip the GFI. And I come over to here to where I had no power before, and I've got one lead that's got 87 volts, 2 leads with nothing. But when everything was wired right, I had one lead here that only had like 2 volts, and I just assumed that was like a bleed over of some sort. But with the neutral and the ground removed at the breaker box, if I turn the breaker back onto this room, it takes a moment and then it trips the GFI. It's not instant like it is when they're hooked up. So somehow we got a crossover in wires here someplace. And over here at this outlet, with everything hooked up to the breaker box properly, I checked power to ground 125, power to neutral 125, as it should be. So the main lead coming in is fine. It's somehow where it ties into this, there's an issue. And I can't quite make it out. I can't see up there without ripping the ceiling down. From the other side of the wall, I can see down the base some, but with insulation there, it's very hard to be clear. I can see where the wires come from over there and kind of come this way. I'm just a little puzzled on it now. And back here at the breaker box, if I check the neutral that I've got disconnected and just kind of hanging out right here, if I check it, I've got that same 87 volts there that I have over there, but it's on the neutral. Over there, I'm checking it on the hot, the black wire. The black wire, here's the white wire, which should be hot and neutral. But if something's wired wrong up in that ceiling, it's definitely causing an issue where it's on the wrong circuit, which then could explain some of these issues. And then I pulled my extension cord, which is my temporary power, from the plug right here. All the voltage disappears off of that neutral line. All right, after much frustration and realizing that without ripping the ceiling out, I can't figure out where the problem is in that wire, so I just bypassed it. So here's what I did. I hooked the neutral and the ground back up at the box, and of course that gave me power back to my outlets. And then instead of hooking the wire there and the wire here, you see I ended up just cutting this one short. Problem wire, I just cut it and folded it over. And then I did the same thing over here. Now, the wire that I was running from my switch up and over to here, I rerouted behind this wall and I dropped it right here where that existing wire already was, tied into there to that light, which is then looped up to this dangly bit right here, which is then looped to the dangly bit right there, which is then looped to the one on this side and this side of the garage. So now, when I flip my switch, I get light. And I've checked at all 4 other points. There's also voltage present and no backfeeding on the neutral side. So that is all good. We have power to the outlets when the breaker's on. We have power to the lights when the switch is on. All on the same circuit. So it's supposed to be. All right, now we're gonna move to the next room. This room is done for now. So the last of the pre-wired rooms is this one out here. And if you guys remember, we figured all that out. I need to run a wire from this corner, but on the other side of that wall, all the way down the back side to the breaker box. And that should supply that with power. All the wiring in that room should be good because we use temporary power to the same connection point that I'm going to use now when we were here the other night, and it worked fine. So I'm going to whip out my ladders and get to running some 12 gauge wire. So I just got finished running a brand new wire from the breaker box up to the ceiling and all the way over there to that corner to hook to the other room. And when I flip the breaker on, I can see one of the lights come on. Let's go make sure everything else is working. All right, so that light is on. The light up here is on. And if I flip the switch, this light should turn off. Perfect. All right, this room is done. I got to put light fixtures in it. This is all temporary lights. Just once the wiring is all done, I can put the fixtures in. All right, so where are we at now? We've made a huge difference. At this point, I believe all of the original wiring that was here has been repaired or modified to my suiting. And it's been a task, guys. We've probably got, I don't know, 16, 18, 20 hours into diagnosing and repairing some of this stuff over a course of a couple of days. It's been a pain in the butt, but quick rundown. So outlet on both sides of the garage. And these lights in here are now on one circuit. I wired a switch, so these lights can go off with the switch, come back on with the switch. On that same circuit, there is another outlet that I installed over here. Remember, there was just a wire that came over here that was just cut, went to nothing. It was on the same circuit as those outlets in that bay. So rather than wasting it, I just put a drop here, put an outlet in. This bay number 4. Remember, we figured out the outlets for down here. So I fixed them, put new outlets in them, new face plates, they all work. I temporarily installed a couple lights with the switch. Works beautifully. Another outlet on that wall that also works. Now here in the middle, there was a little box hanging down, and I happen to have this heavy duty cord with this 4-way outlet box that had been sitting around for 25 years, I think I've had. So I wired it to there. That way I've got a spot here in the middle to use for power. Now I'm gonna put a bigger hook up there so I can kind of coil it up where I can reach it, but I can pull it down if I need to. Thought about getting one of those retractable reels, but I had this sitting here, so no cost involved. All right, what was the wood room, which is now bay number 3. The one outlet that's in here is working. Temporary light up also, light switch working. So happy with that. Now all the way over here in the metal part of the building, outlets are working. Got one temporary light up there. Flip the switch on, light comes on. So that is all the power that was already run, with a couple of exceptions. I actually repaired a wire up here in the ceiling that disappears off into this area here. I'll be honest, I don't know where it goes. I thought it was to my drop cord right there. Turns out it wasn't. I still don't know where it goes, so I just shut that breaker back off, but I repaired the wire. It has power, I just don't know where it goes. So for now, the breaker is powered off. Also, the 30 amp plug that's on that wall and over here, right there on that wall. Remember, that's the wire that ran around the outside of the building. I have not reconnected it from the outside of this wall yet, but I have a plan to, but I need to get up there and pull a bunch of staples out and take the wire that's wrapping around the building down. And I'm gonna shortcut it right straight to the breaker box. So that one technically is not fixed yet, but I've got a plan to fix it. Our rogue wire out here, still have no idea what it goes to. So we're just not gonna worry about it. There's no power to it. And then remember, there is the outlet that's out here on the outside, which is tied to the breaker for this bay. So right now, each bay has its own breaker for outlets and lights, all functional. Guys, and I wanna mention, at the beginning of this, I talked about how I had a bunch of supplies laying around. In between what I salvaged that was already here and moved around, I think I got all of this working for about $6. I did buy a couple of these 88-cent switch housings and a couple light switches, but everything else I either had or was able to reuse something that was here. So far, we're in this pretty cheap. Now, I need more power. As you see, this back wall is still really dark. These bays here are really dark. I do intend to run power there. There wasn't anything there now. I'll have to run all new circuits, but I'm gonna use in 6 circuits out of that breaker box now. So we got plenty of room in the breaker box. I am gonna run some bay lights through here, some bay lights through there, and along that back wall, I'm gonna put a series of outlets, but that will be the next phase in the project. Now the lights that are hanging up here right now, these are all temporarily mounted. Like this one here is literally just zip tied between those brackets for the garage door. This one here is put up with a piece of fiberglass hanging strap like you'd use for running air conditioning duct. The one in the other, all 3 of the other ones in the other rooms are all hanging by that. And of course, this one here isn't even mounted. It's just running across that corner. I have ordered more lights, and when they get here, I will mount more of them. I've also ordered the brackets to properly mount these lights, the little clips that you screw in and they pop into. I've also ordered more extensions to go between lights, because these lights I can wire into one end, but if I want another light right here, I don't have to run another outlet. I can just run the extension and put the second light right there. So, and I'm not saying that's even where that light's going to stay. I just wanted something wired to it. I'll figure out the configuration for sure as I kind of use this room and learn how I want it. But I kind of like that one coming down on an angle. I'll probably do another one on this wall coming down on an angle, and a couple back here above me shining straight down as well. All right, guys, next day again, and it's a little bit more chill in here today. Was down in the mid-20s last night. Today it's like 55, but it's cloudy, so you don't have that warmth of the sun shining on you. And it's quite breezy in here today too, so had to throw on the long sleeve. So now that all of the existing electrical is pretty much sorted out, I know I've got to put some more light fixtures in, but I'm waiting for them to come. I've still got this area here and this area here that have no electric whatsoever. So I'm going to put basically 4 bay type lights in that section over there on the other side of this beam, that side. And I'm going to put 4 on this side. I'm going to run a light switch back here on the wall, and I'm actually going to run 4 light switches. I'm going to run power from the main breaker box up and over and down here to the switch boxes, put 4 switches in, run out the 4 sections. All right, in addition to that, I don't have any power on this back wall at all, so I'm definitely gonna put some outlets there. Someday in the future, I may put some like in this bay as well, but I've already got power running to that room right there, and it comes in right here, so it'd be really easy to just make a drop and put some power in there and run another one over and down on this wall as well. That may come in the future, not sure yet. Right now, we're just trying to get the place functional. So here's what I've got left over for material. So I still got a couple single outlet boxes that I don't know that I'm going to use just yet unless I add those extra features. Here I've got 4 double gang boxes, and those are going on the back wall. I'm going to put one over in that corner by that bay, one just side of this doorway right in here, one on the other side of the doorway, and one a little bit further down. Remember, I've got an outlet right below the breaker box, which is right over here, so I don't really need one all the way down there. So those 4 will get spaced out there. I have a 4 gang box, which is going to be for my light switches that will go right here next to the front door when I come in, and those will be for the bay lights up top that we just spoke about. There will be a total of 8 lights on 4 circuits. So there are 8 light boxes, and I just got the old light bulb style screw-in type covers to go on those. And that's because the lights that I chose to order from Amazon on there literally just screw in like a light bulb, but they've got multiple LED as a floodlight type setup. So that's the game plan for today. I still have quite a bit of this wire here still left over. It's 20 amp wire. Now that's relatively new wire, but I did not buy it for this project. It's the same roll that I ran these other strands here. That was left over from another project at home, but I also have this other roll of older wire too that's the same stuff. So this here, I don't know, probably 30, 40 feet of that right there as well. I think I'm gonna go ahead and go through and mount my boxes where I want them, and then it'll just be time to start stringing wire. Oh, I also have this 3 gang box, which I don't know right now that I have a use for, but when I was at Lowe's making purchases, I knew there was a possibility I may run into some situations where I wanna do this or do that, and at first, I didn't realize that the switches in some of these rooms were gonna be there, so I thought I was gonna put more switches by the front door to control these other rooms, but now that we've got them set up, I don't. So there's 3 bays that already have switches, so I don't really need this one. But like I said, it's like $3. We'll keep it in case we do need it. All right, guys, so I got my switch box mounted, and I got my double outlet mounted there. Another one over there. I got 2 more mounted over here on this side. Now, what's cool about these boxes, these gang boxes, they already came with the screws and everything in there. I don't know if you can see that, but the screws were already there, already pre-started. So these things are super fast and easy to put up. Now, because of the length of this one, once it was on, it still felt a little flimsy. So I did screw 1 Tapcon in there to hold it back to the concrete wall as well. Now I've got to do a little bit of measurements and decide at what intervals I want to put my 4 bay lights here and my 4 there. Both of these rooms are the same length, but this one does have a garage door. So I want to make sure that the light is not directly above the garage door. So if the garage door is up, it's not blocking that light from shining down. So I'm gonna do a little bit of math and figure out where I'm gonna evenly space them. All right, guys, so it turns out that the math was about every 5 bays, put it pretty close to center for each one. And I think that'll work fine. And I put them about the center of the room, approximately. I didn't measure any of that crap. I just slid the ladder every 5 bays, nailed one up. Slid the ladder 5 bays, nailed one up. This isn't a precision built thing. It's not a custom mansion. I mean, look at this place. It's gonna do just fine. All right, so all of the boxes are in place. Now it's just time to start stringing wire. I'm gonna do the lights first. That way, if I get that circuit working, if my lights get here, which I know I had to deliver yesterday, I didn't even check to see what it was, I can at least put the lights in and then I'll be able to see better to do the rest of it. All right, so my first run of wire from the breaker box through the rafters, coming down to the light switch. See, it stopped right there, a little tingly. All right, so yeah, like 6 feet short of making it to the box, which sucks. So I'm gonna splice in a piece of this other stuff I've got and finish it to that box. And then I'll start with the next roll. All right, guys. Well, Zach showed up and helped me out for the last couple of minutes. And so here's where we're at now. I've got the wire going from the breaker box down to the switch housing. I have one lead coming up and going to these 2 light boxes that are up here. Another lead going up to the 2 light boxes that are over there. Now we've got the 2 light boxes here. We've got wire going from one to the other, but that's where we ran out of wire. So we still need to run that run all the way back to the switches. And then we got to tie these 2 boxes together and back to the switches. And then I'm still gonna need wire to run my outlet boxes. So looks like I gotta go to the store and probably buy about another 250 feet of Romax to finish this up. So that's where the first real cost is gonna come in with getting this electric done. All right, guys, quick trip out to Lowe's, and I ended up getting 500 feet of wire. I realized that I didn't really need to continue using 12 gauge to just run these lights, and 14 gauge is more than enough. 14 gauge is rated for 15 amps, and 2 LED lights on one circuit is not gonna be anything even close to that. So I wanted to get 2 different size wires. So I didn't really need 500 feet, but I was doing the math on if I broke it up into smaller rolls and got like a 100-foot roll of one and a 150-foot roll of the other, it actually costs more money, believe it or not. So I end up with a lot more footage, and we do plan on adding some more outlets here and there, maybe in the future. Having the extra wire isn't gonna hurt. So this is about $200 worth plus tax. I think it came out to $220, almost $220, something like that when it was all said and done. So the first real big expense into doing this. So Zach is back again, and we're gonna finish running these runs. All right, guys, while Zach was finishing running the new 12 gauge wire over to the switches from the circuit that we didn't get completed, he is now working on running the 12 gauge wire. We just ran 14 gauge here. He's now running the 12 gauge all the way across to the breaker box for the outlets. And while he was doing that, I've been pre-wiring my switch manifold, not really a manifold. Anyway, so here I have all 4 switches, and I've looped the hot wire from one to the next because we've got 1 hot lead coming into the box. I've also tied together all of my grounds, and of course, so that will supply power in, power out, or the wires that are in the box. So now it's time to go over there and do the final connections there. All right, so now I've got to strip back on my wiring here. That way I can install my little switch assembly. All right, so with the hot lead coming in, going to the first one, and now jumped over to the others. All of the ground wires are also jumped. So now I just gotta hook up all the neutrals here after I splice these, and then my hot leads out to the switches. All right, all the neutrals tied together, all the hots tied to the appropriate switches and linked together, all the grounds tied together. Now it's just time to set them back in there, screw them in. All right, well, Zach is long since gone, and I finished it up myself, but it's way later than I wanted it to be. But I think we made some progress, so I'm gonna hang this light right here. So I got all the outlets along the back wall. There are 4 double gang boxes along the back wall, all linked to the same circuit, and I have power there. So there's one down at the far end, one just on this side of the door, one on this side of the door, and there's one about 12 feet further down that way, right about there. We also got all of the lights up in the rafters wired in and the fixtures in place. Here you can see the fixture. The next one is over there. See that one there? We've actually got a light bulb in, and same thing with this one here. Remember, there are 4 circuits breaking this main big room up into 4 sections. I have 4 light switches. I have 1 light bulb in each circuit, even though there are 2 fixtures per circuit. And these light bulbs aren't very bright, but they work. Switch number 1 works this one here. Then switch number 2 works this one here. Switch number 3 works that one there. And the switch number 4, you can't really see the bulb from here, but you'll see it light up. That one over there. All right, so for now, wiring is done. I may still add a couple outlets to this wall over here. I've got enough wire. I will need to go get 2 more gang boxes. Well, actually, I've got 2 single outlets left, and I've got 2 single gang boxes left. I guess I could do them singles and not have to go buy anything else instead of doing the 4s. And because there's one there, there's one there, there's one there, I may just do that. I don't know. And then other than that, it's waiting on my light fixtures that I ordered to come in, because there's going to be 5 of these strip lights like this in this bay, 5 in the other bay. There's going to be like 7 or 8 in the main bay. And then my really bright LEDs that are going to thread in up here where the bulbs are. But for now, we're done. I'm gonna clean up this mess and get out of here. It's freezing out here tonight. I forgot to mention, sliced my finger open pretty good with a razor knife to strip back some wire. Sometimes you try to save some money and do something the hard way, and it ends up costing you in the long run. That direct burial wire is way harder to strip the casing back in order to get to your 3 wires. And I was just holding it the wrong way, and the knife slipped, and sure enough, there went my fingertip. Well, not my tip, but it sliced it pretty good. It was bleeding like a son of a gun for a little bit. All right, guys, it is the next morning, and I tell you what, a much more beautiful day today. It's definitely warmer. When I got here yesterday, I mentioned that it was like 55 and going up to 60. I was wrong on that. It never got out of the 40s, and we were freezing over here working yesterday, and it was very breezy, which just, made that chill go to your bones. Apparently, when I looked at my phone earlier that day, it hadn't updated. It was on what it was from the day before. Anyway, today it's actually about 60 or so. It's actually pretty nice out. When I was done last night, I was so happy that everything was actually up and working. I really wanted to clean up the shop. The floors have just become a mess. You guys know we spent a lot of time cleaning this place out. But through this process, a lot of pieces of insulation and that dry rotted tar paper and just, scraps from the wiring all over the floor. But on Valentine's Day, Katie's brothers came into town and 2 of our nephews, and last night was their last night in town. They left this afternoon to head back to Florida. So I didn't want to spend an extra hour or so sweeping and cleaning the shop. I just wanted to get home and have dinner and hang out with family. So now that everybody's gone, I'm back over here today. Not going to spend much time, but also when I got home yesterday, some of the light bulbs that go into those screw-in light bulb fixtures, 4 of the 8 that I ordered had arrived. So I'm gonna go ahead and install those. Also, I had some of this wire shelving units that I've had out in my storage building for many, many years. We actually used to use this in our setup at the rallies before we went to Goliath, and we haven't needed them in many years, but being the frugal guy that I am, I don't throw anything away. So this stuff just got shoved into a building and hung out there. Well, now I'm gonna put it together. I don't know if I have enough to do all of it, but we're gonna assemble that really, really fast and then organize the stuff that I have here, all of the leftover electrical stuff. I'm gonna put all that on these shelves so it's up off the floor, clean these floors, and then that's it for today, and hopefully we'll get this video closed out. Now, I do have to admit I'm a little bit puzzled. As you see, I have 8 shelves here, but only 6 poles, and I could have swore that we had 2 sets of 4-tier shelves, but with only 6 poles, I can't build 2 complete sets. Maybe I'll be able to do a double set, still get the 8 shelves in there, like where the center set of poles share shelves from both ways, maybe. I also found 6 casters with the screw-in style studs on them that should fit into the bottom of these legs so that once it's in here, I can roll it around. Also the little baggie of clips, get 2 of those baggies. So hopefully we can make this configuration work. Well, just my luck. I got 4 of the casters in and realized I've got 2 legs where the old casters that were on it broke off. So without the tools here to extract bolts, not that I'd even waste the time on this, looks like we're not getting our casters. To complicate things even more, turns out one of the baggies of these plastic clips I brought, different size. We had a smaller set of shelves as well, and all of these are the clips for the smaller set of shelves. So I've only got half of the clips. So I've still got 4 more shelves that I can't put on yet. So I'll have to search the house and see if I can't find those other clips somewhere before I can finish this. But either way, I've got a couple shelves here. I think I can move some of the things I need that are in here onto these shelves and still accomplish my goal for the day. Hi guys, so these are the LED lights that I got to put up into those fixtures. Lots going around there, and these are posable. So I can flip them all down, kind of make it like this. It should shine some pretty good light up in those areas. All right guys, and there are those lights in action. Now one of them did not work properly. You know, on the screw in base on a light bulb, the center part of it at the very bottom is where it makes the contact for the positive, and the outside threaded area is the ground. Well, one of them, the little contact piece in there, had been pushed in, but I was able to get in there with a screwdriver, push it out, super glued into place, and I screwed it back in just till it touched, and it seems to be working good now. But now all that's left is to clean up the mess on these floors and call it the day. Guys, and I gotta tell you, these make a huge difference. Keep in mind, it's daytime and it's a nice sunny day out, but look at the difference these lights make in here when they're off. Nice and bright. It's the way I like it. At night, they're gonna seem even brighter, which is gonna be awesome. Now, not even a real detailed sweep. That's about 10 minutes with the push broom, just getting every bit of debris into a pile. There's still sand and small stuff everywhere. I'll come back in with the backpack blower in a minute as soon as I get rid of this. All right, well, I got it all blown out. And that was actually a lot harder than I thought. I really figured, 10 minutes I'd run through and just blow all the dust out of the corners. But right when I thought I had it good, I'd end up coming up against a spot on the wall like this that had all these little openings in it. And it was just packed full of these little insulation pellets, like beanbag filling. Like I had the place almost completely clean, and then I'd walk by that and blow a little air in it and just cover the floor. Get that all cleaned up, found another spot on the wall with more of it. And of course, I was always blowing it into the wind, back in my face. Filthy now. But anyway, shop's clean again. I'm happy with that for now. All right, guys, so I know it's still daytime out, but we are inside with all of the doors closed. You guys remember, we could barely see in here before. And this is just the beginning. I've got a lot more lights on the way, but unfortunately, some of them aren't going to get delivered until we're actually in Daytona. So we're going to have to finish the lighting project after Daytona. Now, as I was doing this project, I had this vision in the video of opening the video with coming over here late at night, setting up the 360 camera in the middle of the building, and then just having the camera point of view move and turn as each bay in each room lit up and kind of came to life. But because I don't have all the lights here like I want, we're not going to get that effect. So you'll just have to wait to the next time we get over here for that major reveal. But yeah, just check out the difference as I walk through and start turning everything out. And I know it's just lights, guys, but I'm happy. This excites me. I love the fact that I'm making some progress here. Really impressed with these, and these lights weren't expensive. The box of 8 of them was 100 or it was either 99 or 109. I honestly don't remember, but it's a pretty good deal. So it comes out to what, 12 or 15 bucks a piece. Not bad at all. All right, and then for the final little bit, these 4 switches on my way out. Big difference, guys, big difference. Oh, and did we forget about this? At this point, I hadn't seen any comments that said you guys wanted to see what was in the hole. I haven't even looked myself yet. But now, I think it's gotta wait. It's gotta wait because this is gonna be the last video on shop stuff, probably, at least until we get back from Daytona. As of right now, it is Sunday, the, what, 18th or something like that? I don't even know. We have exactly 1 week until we leave here to head to Daytona Beach. And so I've got to go get Goliath and the trailer ready. Got a couple repairs I need to do on it and focus on that. 1 week to go, we head to Daytona Beach. All right, guys, I think we're going to end this one here. Thank you for watching. I know this video has been long and this has been such a headache and such a nightmare, but I saved a bunch of money doing it the way I did it. And I learned a little bit along the way. Guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Until next time I see you, keep those engines running. Oh, I forgot to mention, that's where I put the shelf set up and just organized all of that stuff there.